Hello everybody and welcome to Haus. I'm Rob, and today we're going to be going over the update, the big one, 1.2.5, and I say the big one because it is quite lengthy. I'm really interested to see kind of how they have done all of these things. I normally don't take a look, but this time I was like, I mean, look at this thing. It is quite extensive. So, I at least normally just take a quick look at it. The plan today is going to be, we're going to get through all of it. So buckle up. It's going to be another long one. The one thing I will say is we will probably, actually, wait 1 second. Before we get deeper, make sure you guys like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any other Civ 7 content. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. All right, that's out of the way. Let's get to this part. I am going to mostly skip through the things that we have already discussed unless if I see something else of note. The main reason being we have full videos of, the map generation stuff, of the Napoleon update, that kind of stuff in other videos. Normally, you guys know I would go through this super extensively, but we already basically did that. And so, if you want to get more in-depth thoughts on those specific things, go and check out those videos. Normally, I don't ask you guys to do that, but if you guys want a little bit more in-depth thought on them, I'm still going to talk about them, but just more in-depth, go check out those videos. Like I said, I really don't want to waste time. Let's just get into it here. We got a big one. So 1.2.5 is rolling out on all platforms. That's good. So we're not missing anything for the Nintendo Switch. We've got themed city-states, new map types, full rework of Napoleon, and a bunch of balanced UI improvements, all that kind of stuff, and Right to Rule. And that's out today, by the way. So I've caught up on my sleep. I feel much better now. I do apologize. I, for some reason, thought they said September 29th, but clearly I'm just stupid. It was September 30th all along. So there we go. A few quick notes before we dive back in. These are big ones real quickly. Basically what they're saying is that they're trying to make it so that existing saves will work, but with all the new things that are coming out, it's kind of hard to, because it can potentially break the game. If you do run into any bugs, let them know. And then if you're playing on Steam, you can go to another branch. That's something that most of us should already know. If you need to know how to do that, look it up. It's basically you just go into the settings and you can decide like which patch essentially you are going to be on for the game. So then you can maybe finish a game and then play another one afterwards. So there you go. All right, first new thing. New map types and improved map generation. We have talked about this a couple different times, but no more just straight edges. No more, and I think it's not even just straight edges, because you can see like there are juts and everything like that. But it was just the block. It was just a rectangular block. You can see it literally where it was basically just being made. Now with the Pangea and the islands and the continents and the islands, it's just gonna look a little bit more, I wouldn't even necessarily say natural, but just different, unique, and interesting. And so they went deep into this, but these two map types are going to be the new default, by the way. You can still go to the other ones for a more balanced game state. What I am very interested by is a lot of the things that they are putting in are the new defaults. And then if you wanted to go back to the way that you liked it before, you can change it back. So we are getting more and more defaults for the settings because, they're hearing us and they're seeing what we want. And I will say this map generation is absolutely outstanding. I love it. Very, very happy about it. Then, huge UI changes, really and truly. And they're not even doing it justice. Like, they're just basically barely showing what they have changed, even with, like, the different, jut out boxes and, the ageless. And you can see now a little bit better the actual representation for the yields and stuff that you're going to be getting. They have really and truly completely changed this part of the game. It's going to look much better on your maps as well. When you're trying to decide on what you're going to do, it's going to give you exactly what you're going to get, what you're going to lose, all that kind of stuff. It just looks so much better. And it is something that I think if you guys would like, I really would go back and watch the other video this time, specifically just because of the fact that they have more images that kind of show more of what's going on. And then even in the update that they put out yesterday with the dev diary, it was a little bit deeper in terms of what all was coming into it as well. And you will notice all of these big changes here to the UI and to the UX, as you get into the game. It's going to be awesome. I'm very much looking forward to starting up a new game with all of this. Now, here's something that they haven't, they kind of went into, but we haven't seen all of it. So, there are new city-states, diplomatic, and expansionists. You got the Canauj people and the Aberfraw people. So, the Welsh and the Pratihara, something like that. Sorry, again, for my pronunciation, but these are just some of the city-states that they will be having added to the game. But you can see the new expansionist flag, the new diplomatic flag, which I absolutely love those, by the way. Also love this Welsh design. Big fan of that one. So they're actually they only talk about it down here, but they actually show it down here. So we'll go into this. Let me see here. Suzeraning. Yeah, okay, so down below they're going to actually show us what all the additions are for these. But just know, for right now, new diplomatic, new expansionist. And here we get into everything. So the strategic balance pass, this is where we're going to start, and we're just going to get into all of what they're actually saying. Over the last several months, we have made several changes in around leaders, civs, city-states, age transition settings, and more. Along the way, we've learned a lot about how you're playing the game and the way it's presenting or not presenting a meaningful strategic challenge. In evaluating balance, a few things became clear. Many of the best options for maximizing yields are off-map, based on passive bonuses from attributes, city-states, and empire resources. Many of those bonuses are stacking percentages available to all civs, which diminishes the value of leader and civ abilities in comparison. Beautiful, because they're not wrong. There are a lot of games where sometimes it kind of felt like, things were kind of going the same, right? For a lot of these games. This is going to make it more, and somebody put this in the comments, but I had not made that connection. By taking some of these percentages and making it more base yields, it's going to make it so that the game feels much different between each game and between each leader. And this is something that we've been seeing a lot of problems with 4X games specifically. I only briefly mentioned it, but Aura History Untold, one of the biggest gripes I had about that game last year was the fact that basically every leader felt the exact same. Every game kind of felt the exact same. They went and rehauled it. I think Civ, while having a lesser problem in that regard, also had that happen. So this is good news. Very happy about this, and I think you guys you won't notice it just with the eye test, but with the feel and the way the game plays, I think we will all notice it a lot. Okay, it's often easy to build every available building in an age. While not inherently a problem, this reduces strategic decision making. Players were choosing when to build, not what to build. I would agree with that. Building value also diminishes as yields climb, making them even less interesting decision points. It's usually optimal to play with as many cities as possible. Converting a new city has an upfront cost but requires little strategic consideration. While we want to support wide play styles, the effectiveness gap between wide and tall play, fewer cities, more towns to support, was too large. I would generally agree with that. The gold economy rarely challenges the players. New towns provide large amounts of gold and pay for themselves quickly, while maintenance costs like unit upkeep don't often make more than a small dent in finances. These problems are even more pronounced on higher level difficulties or difficulty levels where players can exploit these stacking bonuses while the AI struggles to keep up. Considering all this, our goal was to bring more of the game onto the map and emphasize player decisions. We aim for Civ 7 to be accessible at lower difficulties and challenging at higher difficulties, so we wanted to avoid changes that would negatively affect newer players. So what changed? Now, here's the thing. They have so many new players. There are so many of you out there who this may be your first Civ game, or maybe, you've barely played 6, now you're into 7. And I will admit again, this game is pretty easy now. There's, it always felt like with Civs 5 and 6 that there was a lot more variety to the games, the strategery, all that kind of stuff. I stand by, and I don't know that they will fully admit it, right? And I know you guys will be in the comment section. You'll probably find somewhere where they did fully admit it. And maybe they have and I forgot. But, I mean, the whole point of this game was for newer players. They released on console for the first time, at the same time. They, did the VR, trial, which I have not heard much about because I doubt they have very many players, maybe a few thousand at most on that, right? They understand that this game did not, it hit, I think, well for newer players because it was an easier thing, but now they are realizing how much they need to add the actual strategy, which is the point of the game, right? So, I wish that they would worry a little less about newer players because the barrier to entry has already been as low as it's going to get, basically. And not just that, but how many more new players are you really expecting to get over the next few months now that the game will have been out for almost a year here fairly soon, right? So I will say that I really hope that they will stop worrying about new players. I think sometimes for a game like this, that can be the death of your game. Other times, like a game like League of Legends, where they are struggling to get new players at all, and they are just, losing too many older players, like myself, who doesn't really play at all anymore. Those are the kinds of times when maybe you do need to switch that up. But with Civ 7, I just don't think that that's the right type of thing. But whatever, we'll continue on. That's more of a maybe philosophical difference that I have with them. And I'm not the one that sees how much money and everything that they are bringing in yet. Off-map yields and stacking percentages. We reviewed the entire game and removed almost every stacking percentage bonus. Leaders in Civs retain their bonuses to increase their strategic impact, which I think is great. Where possible, we replaced percentages with numerical bonuses that are still meaningful, but don't snowball uncontrollably. When you snowball, it should be because of smart decisions, not repeated 3% bonuses. I would generally agree with that. We added a new cost progression mechanic for buildings. Now, every non-warehouse building in a settlement increases the cost of future non-warehouse buildings there. Okay, that's interesting because I thought they wanted us to build on top of it. Okay. Buildings across your empire also cost more for every additional city other than your capital. Base costs were adjusted, and most buildings now provide higher base yields. Overall, good change. And then they adjusted the gold economy so that, there's less gold in the game, and things like, unit maintenance, towns, all that are going to be a little more expensive. We also made adjustments to a number of social policies, resources, city-state effects, modern tech costs, and Civ abilities to better fit with this new paradigm. You can find the details on specific changes in the notes below. So they did this again, and this is why they were saying, you may not be able to play, into the next age of your game or anything like that, any of your saves, because of the fact that this game is just fundamentally different now from where it was, even just yesterday. So that is why. This is the first step in their, and they keep saying this. They've said first step so many times in this. So I really am inclined to believe that they have more of a plan moving forward. And our ongoing effort to improve balance. We're continuing to evaluate all yields, leader, and Civ abilities and opportunities to add new systems and tweaks that deepen strategic decision making. This pass lays the foundation for much more significant systems and content to come. And Deity players, let us know if these changes cranked up the difficulty for you. I am sure that it will, just because I think the game will feel much differently. They redid both Napoleons. We went over it yesterday in a video. I'm sure they're going to have those changes down there, but they needed it in a big way. They're going to. All right, here's the actual notes now. Like I said, we're not going to go over some of the things that we've already talked about. You know what the islands are. You know what's going on with the Pangea and the Continent's islands. Here's what we are going to go into. Okay? The new city-state. So the new city-state type is diplomatic. A befriending gift of plus 50, 250, or 1,000 happiness towards your next celebration. Antiquity bonuses. So these are the different ones you can choose from, right? Allows the creation of the festival grounds unique improvement. Very cool. Which is +1 influence, +1 happiness. Double base yields during celebrations. Okay. Interesting. Must be built on an existing improvement on flat terrain adjacent to a district, 1 per settlement. That's Okay, I was gonna say, because this is pretty strong. So 1 per settlement makes sense. Gain the send delegation endeavor. When accepted, both civs gain 4% or 4, happiness per turn, and you gain vision of their capital for the duration. Okay. When supported, both civs gain +8 happiness per turn, and you both gain vision of each other's capitals for the duration. I will say, so they're bringing this back, right? Why is it that it's just if we have a diplomatic city-state? I don't like that this is being kept behind that. This is something that I think they are going to have to change if they're going to change the way diplomacy works. I don't love the gain vision is only from this. I mean, I guess it's good, but at the same time, hiding it behind there just doesn't feel great. I don't love it. Don't love it personally, but whatever. Vigiles Urbani, +2 happiness on happiness buildings. So you're stacking happiness or influence pretty obviously with the diplomatics. City-states, +20% influence towards starting and supporting endeavors and sanctions for each diplomatic city-state that you are suzerain of. That could be very strong. Skytail? I don't know. +20 influence towards starting espionage acts for each diplomatic city. Okay, they are completed 25% faster. That'll be very good for the new Napoleon, which we'll get into, I'm sure, here shortly. You get +1 social policy slot, which is really good. I think all of these have their merit, but that theoretically could be one of the best ones, especially if you're not just necessarily playing for a diplomatic victory or a happiness build in some way. And then the gift exchange, +1 happiness on warehouse buildings, and that is shareable. So that's pretty good. Pretty good stuff. Then we got exploration. So that's just an antiquity, by the way. Minor embassy allows the creation of the minor embassy unique improvement, which is +2 influence, and then +1 influence for each ally you have. Must be built on an existing improvement in a city, only 1 per city. Again, also looks strong. The demand tribute sanction targets 1 settlement with treasure resources. This one is very strong. We talked about this. -20 gold for the duration, and on completion creates a treasure fleet worth 2 points. Like, if you're suzerain of a city-state, dude, you could wreck somebody with stuff like this, and you could more easily win that economic victory path. So, kind of crazy there. The Machi Bugyo, +2 happiness, okay, on buildings. That's pretty much the same thing, okay. I lost it. Okay, there we go. +20 influence. Okay, so basically the same things. They just named it differently down here at the bottom. So there you go. Modern bonus allows the creation of a circus fair unique improvement, which is +6 happiness, and then +1 influence when built in cities. Must be built on existing settlement with at least 15 population, 1 per settlement. That happiness bonus is insane. The influence, is fine. Like, it's not crazy, but it's good. Gain the ideological revolt espionage. Targets 1 city of a civ with an ideology. On completion, pillages up to 4 tiles in that city. Dude, that is crazy. Okay. That could be very strong as well. Espionage, kind of getting a buff here with this. Again, I don't love that these things are being locked behind city-states, but it's still interesting. I will say that. Then we got pretty much the same things that we had before. These are pretty strong. These repeating ones are kind of strong, but these other ones, man, I like those. That could be fun. All right, now we've got the expansionist, not espionage, Jeezel. So you get the befriend grift is 1 migrant in capital, which is, I think, actually pretty strong. I like that. Gain that extra pop, wherever you might need it. Could be very, very good. Allows the creation of this improvement that I won't try to pronounce. +2 food, and then +1 food on farms in desert in this settlement. Must be built on existing improvement in the desert. Cannot be placed next to another one. So that could be That could be really good for a couple different civs, actually. Very interesting there. The Eratrum, +1 food on resources. The Quanats, +4 food on food buildings. The Fermentation, +1 food in settlements. For each expansionist city-state you're a suzerain of. You receive a free settler in your capital. Here we go. This is what I was talking about with expansionists. And I think these 2 new city-states are actually super strong, just right off the bat. +1 settlement limit, which is big, and then +1 food on warehouse buildings. Okay, whatever. These 2, sorry, it sounds bad. These 2 are going to be the main reason that you will want to be the suzerain of an expansionist city-state. This is ridiculous. Again, like, there are some very interesting new civ combos and stuff that you could run just with the hope that you run into an expansionist city-state here. Like, this is crazy cool. Okay. So you guys are right, by the way. I didn't mention. I saw the scroll down. I just was talking about what I could see on the screen when they were going over it. I had hoped that that's what would be in them. And my hopes were, I guess, rewarded. So that's good news. All right. The Sakia and the Exploration Age, +4 food, +1 science, if built in a settlement following your religion. Hey, look, religion. Getting a little bit of a buff here with that. Must be built on existing improvement on floodplains. Interesting. +1 food, +4 food. Same thing, +2 food for eat. Yeah, okay, there we go. Then here we go. So it receives a population in your capital when you become suzerain of an expansionist city-state, including this one. That's cool. +1 settlement limits there again. Awesome. I still think I'd rather have the free settler, but it makes sense, right? If you're in Exploration Age, you don't need them as much. So kind of cool, actually. This one's going pretty well. What about modern? +5 food, +1 food, and -1 happiness for each abattoir in this settlement. Must be built on an existing improvement with a food yield. That's actually pretty good. Cannot be placed next to another one. I mean, you're getting 6 food and -1 happiness. Like, that's fine. I mean, I think that's totally okay. Balance plow, excuse me, plow. +1 food, okay, +4 food. Then we get +3 food in settlements for each expansionist city that you are suzerain of, double in town. So that's doubling again. Well, not doubling, but you know what I'm saying. It's increasing. And then you receive a population in your capital when you become okay. So then this one's pretty much the same thing, right? Yeah, okay. Again, I mean, I really think just the ability to have the extra settlement limit is really good. I know that, you could lose suzerains, so, some of those things, like some of these make a lot of sense. I'm okay with these being locked behind a city-state. I still don't love the fact that you can't get vision, especially considering it just kind of disappears, too. I guess it's because you'd already see everybody by then, so maybe that's why. I'm still, sometimes I still think of the older game and of Civ 5 and Civ 6. I wouldn't love that, but okay, I can get behind it now. I can get behind it. All right, we found city-state bonuses were too powerful and encourage suzeraining as many city-states as possible over strategically choosing them based on bonuses. So we made some balance adjustments. Now to stack bonuses, you need to suzerain more of the same type of city-state. We also cut down on the percentage bonuses, free tech civs, /civs, and most building yield bonuses to make other gameplay decisions more important. The new diplomatic and expansionist city-states follow these rules, and leaders like Tecumseh and civs like Greece and Siam get a nice bonus since they all count, since they still count all city-states for their relevant effects. That's actually an important thing to note. We've included the previous for reference. Okay, so you guys can look through this. Basically, what they did is they changed like the percentages to things like +1, combat strength. They actually kept the 5% here for the cultural city-states, which is interesting. Receive a free civic. previously. Okay, so they changed a lot of this stuff here. While a beloved bonus, the free text and civics provided by this type of bonus had too much of an impact on the game's pace. As a silver lining, these bonuses can now grant any unlocked civ or tech or civ, not always the cheapest one available. That is actually a nice little, bonus there. Again, mostly changes there. For our city-state effects that give cultural great works, we found the bonus was rarely chosen compared to other effects. We now buffed these to keep them in line with the rest of the city-state bonuses. All right, cool. Economic, look, +1 instead of +5. Not much explanation really needed on these. If you guys want to, you can read through them. It's just that, these are like little changes that I think do balance the game in a pretty good way. But, yeah. This is good. Like they said, most of this is basically just taking a percentage of something and giving it +1 or +3. So, that's good. All right, rebalancing attribute trees. Stacking bonuses on the attribute trees were the biggest culprit behind ballooning yield numbers. I would agree. In later ages of the game, however, we still like the gameplay of building out your leader's attributes over the course of a full campaign. All direct. Well, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you want that? Okay, sorry, that's just a weird way to put it. All direct percentage bonuses to yields have been removed from the attribute trees and replaced with reasonable but still powerful static bonuses. So, again, I'm not going to dive into these very much, guys. It's just 10%, turn to 5, that kind of stuff. There's really no, it's just basically putting on what we already know, where percentage yields were too strong. Now it's going to be base yields, which will make things a little less strong, and you won't be able to scale as much later on in the game. All right, to encourage better pacing and more strategic planning around constructing and overbuilding buildings, we've adjusted costs and base yields across all ages. The biggest changes are in exploration and modern. Surprise. Buildings now provide more yield. We've also designated one building per age to focus primarily on influence, giving it a higher influence output than before. This is mostly a shift in how we think about these buildings and will serve as a foundation for future content. Boom! Diplomatic, influence, something in that regard is absolutely coming and changing. Right? Foundation for future content. We found it. They give these little hints throughout, right? And I know that there were hints in the video yesterday that I saw, but I just didn't recognize. When things maybe slow down a little bit, I'll go through all the different potential references and leaks that have come out. If you guys would like to see that, let me know. I'm happy to do it. Either me or Connor, honestly. Just depends. We have not changed the types of buildings in this update. So, okay. All of this is basically just, I don't know, guys. Like, these are just little stat changes for the most part, right? So, I hope you guys will forgive me for not reading each one of them out loud. I don't really have many thoughts on them other than the fact that I think these are good changes. I trust that they'll be good changes, and I think we'll feel them in the game. Lastly, here we go. Military unit, or not lastly, there's still a lot, but we're continuing on. Unit maintenance. Military unit base maintenance costs have been adjusted across all ages. Maintenance cost scaling per unit tier has been updated across all ages. Base maintenance costs based on what tier of unit is first available in each age are listed below. So depending on the tier unit, you're going to, costs increase by 1 gold per tier of unit. So looks like tier 1 units are going to have no extra gold, but siege and cavalry and naval. This is actually kind of a nerf to cavalry, by the way. Like I said, I'm not going through too much of it, but that is kind of a nerf. You can see it kind of just scales, and then we get into the bigger parts here, where we go beyond the 5 units, obviously. Heavy naval, anti-aircraft, anti-ground aircraft, bomber aircraft. So, look, like, this is going to be interesting because you're going to be really, how would I put this? Like, you're going to be spending a lot more money. That is for sure. I mean, it may behoove you to have some, more. I really, your armies are now going to be. It's going to be more important to actually pick what type of unit that you want, mainly just because of the fact that, you know, it may cost you too much per turn to grab a siege or grab a cavalry or grab a new ship in exploration. So I love that change. That's really, really good. That one's actually, I feel like, to a certain degree, more, you know, significant. Like, these ones are just rebalancing. We know it's all significant, but it's like a wide swath of all, you know, stats, production, that kind of stuff. But this one is like, I guess maybe it's just because I'm a military, you know, economic player, but like this feels very, very significant in how you're going to build your armies. Civ unique units have had their maintenance costs adjusted to the match the relevant type of unit in their age. Okay, some city Civ unique units like the Medjai and the Hussar have reduced maintenance costs as part of their design. Okay, that's cool. Towns rebalance. City halls in towns no longer have a base production yield. That's actually kind of a bummer. On conversion to a city halls gain 3 production per age. Okay, so city halls in towns, they saw the towns were a little strong. I always think that they're pretty strong, but that's just the way I like to play too. The convert town into city pop-up has been updated to tell players that a city has increased production and warn about the increased cost of buildings across the empire when converted. Good news. Okay, I think we're almost to leaders in Civ. So here we go. Where are we at? All right. As a part of our balance, we've tweaked some of our social policies. For any social policies that we felt needed more significant change or full redesign, we plan to make those changes in the future. Okay, so that is what they mean by balance. These are just the easier ones. Castes now have +2 food in all settlement. This change was part of our pass to remove percent bonuses. Okay. This one, +20% growth rate. With castes taking clan networks effect, okay, we redesigned this to be more effective in the early game scramble to settle new towns. I think that that's smart. Drama and poetry, +2 culture on culture buildings, +20% production towards culture buildings. So they're keeping some percentages. Literature, obviously just kind of the same there. Exploration, +30% towards cavalry units, which is, I think, for like when you're building a unit and stuff like that, having the production still be slightly based around percentages, I don't personally have a problem with. I think that that makes sense. Same thing with the regulars here. We're hesitant to change resources as they reflect the type of on-map bonus that we think is healthy for the game. However, a handful of Empire resources were having too much of an impact on the gold production and culture economies of the game and needed adjustments. When possible, we remove percentage effects and replace them with static bonuses that reflect the intent of the original designs. We're looking at you, llamas. No, I'm just kidding. I just really wanted to talk about llamas. Gold and silver had the biggest impact on our gold economy throughout the ages. They are reasonable in antiquity, but by mid-exploration, it's easy enough to get 5 or more gold and silver, giving the player a 50% discount on all buildings and units. With gold already being abundant, this made the late game gold economy too generous for all players and reduced the value of production. These effects also reduce the impact of our building costs and unit maintenance changes, so we've redesigned them. Wow, redesigned them. Okay. Yeah, so percentages to base yields, that kind of stuff there. Let me see if there's anything else that's too big here. A 5% loss in gold per settlement and production. That is not a small deal, but still good. +3 happiness and +10 culture. Okay, so wine and fur is definitely getting a bit of a nerf. It looks like gold and silver, really and truly, like they just wanted to kind of not fully nerf it, but it kind of feels pretty nerfed. It's kind of a bummer. Those are kind of the ones that I go after pretty regularly, so I'll have to rethink that. They're still not bad. It's just, it's not what it was. That's for sure. And I understand why they had to do it. Just a bit of a bummer. Victory pacing dev note. With these changes to yield economies and game pace, we made some adjustments to the pacing of certain victories in the modern age to keep them balanced and competitive. Cultural victory. Decreased explorer movement from 3 to 2. Haha. We don't like to reduce movement of units because it can artificially extend games. However, our changes to the other victories slowed things down enough that cultural victories were being achieved too quickly with just a few explorers. Now, if players want to rush the victory, they will have to invest more in explorer units. I agree with that. I think that's fine. Reduce the number of overall artifacts available in Modern on large and huge maps, and also increase the number of overbuild sites. Okay, I will admit I don't really go for cultural victory pretty much at all, especially since large and huge maps have come out. So I'm going to just take their word for it that maybe there was too much. Science victory, they reduced. So what was it? The removal of stacking percentages and free tech bonuses had the largest impact on the scientific victory. Makes sense. We found in testing that slowed this victory more than we wanted, so we adjusted the cost of late game techs to compensate. So, okay. That makes sense. Like, I mean, these are pretty significant. I mean, 400 production, 900 production here, over 1,000 on this one specifically, 900 again on these two. So that's not a small deal, actually. That could make Meng's, like, getting to a scientific victory actually a little bit faster than people think. I'm intrigued to see how that will go. Advanced options. Advanced options have now been added to multiplayer. Yay! Custom difficulty options are now always shown in the advanced options screen. When changing the main difficulty setting, all custom settings are updated to match. When changing any of the custom difficulty settings, the main difficulty setting is updated to be custom. Cool, we love that. AI changes. AI will no longer avoid rejecting a denounced sanction when players send an overwhelming military force towards them. That makes sense. AI no longer fails to add additional influence towards the befriend independent action when the players take the lead of the action. So, oh, okay. Okay, so they're going to combat you to try to fight. I mean, that's important, especially with these two new city-states. That's, I think, actually very important. Walls from previous ages are now properly removed when the AI leader overbuilds new walls on a tile during exploration or modern. The AI gives greater weighting to the population of offered cities and peace deals. Still think they need to change peace deals. They don't feel good, but that's at least a little better. AI will no longer pick the first available pantheon when they unlock mysticism, and instead will pick the one that is most beneficial. Feels like that should have been in there already. Did not really think about that. Okay, I'm glad that that's in there now. Okay, AI no longer bypasses government celebration limitations and chooses the same one when entering a celebration. AI will now prioritize attacking vulnerable/weaker units when initiating combat. That is good, because it was always confusing me how I'd have a unit that would just be like low health and they would just freaking ignore it and I could run away. Okay, age transition. In regroup mode, units will prefer to remain packed in the commander they were in before transition instead of being taken out to become the settlement defenders. Yay! That's going to save time, which is important for each turn in these games. Snow will no longer be missing on tundra tiles when transitioning to the next age. That's also important. Updated the Lyceum's legacy card to include +3 science yields on our quarters. Diplomacy, removed redundant city-state text in diplomacy actions with city-states. Good. Environment. The Hill Fort unique improvement can no longer be placed on any improved rural tile when producing or purchasing. Okay. We're good. Unique improvement adjacency placement restrictions can no longer be bypassed when players add multiple unique improvements to production queue at once. The Opera House is now properly listed as a diplomatic building. That is good. Improvements. I don't know why I started to almost go into a weird accent there. I think it was the Opera House that got me. Improvements now considered items in the build queue when checking the same type adjacent requirements. Good news. Economy. Incense production boost no longer applies to all units when slotting the resource. The tenement, stock exchange, and laboratory no longer stack their bonuses to quarters when built in different buildings, or in different settlements, excuse me. City parks no longer stack their happiness to vegetated tiles when built in different settlements. That feels like a weird thing I didn't even notice. Oh, man. I am glad all you stat heads are out there, because these are things I would just totally go right over my head. I wouldn't even be looking at. The Canary building now properly gives plus 10% growth rate to a settlement when fully completed. Hermitage ability plus 5 culture in cities that have a great work on display is no longer providing the wrong amount of culture. The farm will no longer receive 2 food when placing the warehouse building grocer. Mountain terrain natural wonders tiles no longer fail to gain plus 1 happiness when the player unlocks the Mita Mastery Civic as the Inca. Mountain terrain natural wonders no longer fail to gain the plus 2 food plus 1 production bonus when working. So the Incas were getting screwed over anyways. Man, mountain civs they're not as well beloved, it feels like at times. I'm joking, but it has always felt like since the beginning that they have not been as strong, but they've gotten stronger, I know, over time, especially with the food update. That was pretty big for them, but it's just a funny note that the Incas still were having some issues with the mountain terrain. Moving on, miscellaneous improved stability when resyncing players during a multiplayer game. Addressed a reported graphical issue where water levels in lakes would be too low or missing entirely when exploring the map. That's interesting. Added some support for intel. Military naval focus fire now works properly with naval ranged attacks. I feel like they've said this before. I have noticed that occasionally it feels still weird, but I don't use focus fire that often, so I'm not going to complain too much. Units can no longer take damage multiple times in a single turn from ocean damage while on an ocean tile. I haven't noticed that either, really, but again, maybe I just wasn't paying attention, or I don't know. Tonqua is now properly faster than Caravan when creating a trade route as Axum. Jaguar traps tile restrictions no longer fail to appear on the abilities tooltip and unit description. Lock Rebellion's effect description now properly mentions that the enemy unit should be around Trung Ni. Move by rail action now properly reminds players that it requires the capital to have a rail station when attempting to use it. Focus fire. Man, I'm telling you, that one's been a bummer. No longer cues movement after attacking on ranged units. Ranged units no longer move. Instead of attack when directed at an undefended fortified district with the focus fire ability. That's good. Turn advancer remains as next turn when moving any unit, but having remaining movement with the option unit cycle remaining movement enabled. Okay. Leaders. So we've gone over before kind of what's going on with Napoleon Emperor. You can check that out, but basically, like, this continental system didn't work very well. The trade route limit, I think, was really bad. The new influence towards sanctions, the gold, the culture is good, and then the combat strength, I think, is really good, especially when you put that with all the denouncement stuff. Napoleon Revolutionary as well, with, I think, very big changes. It's just more that they gave him a buff than the actual just moving around the power from the Emperor one. You still get the movement. You get double the amount of culture for the combat strength, and you get this new one, which is that when a war is declared, you're getting basically a full army, which is pretty incredible. So I love that. Love that change. Catherine the Great, they're sneaking in a little one. Buildings with great work slots gain 1 additional slot. Ability has been updated to also affect wonders. Okay, that's good. Civs, so a couple little civ ones. They are make sure that leaders and civ choices mattered more during gameplay. As we tested, we realized that the Abbasids were punching way above their weight across many of their effects. Wow. We've been saying that for a couple months now, but hey, that's good. They're still getting to it at least. Additionally, the limiting factor of 8 urban population wasn't enough of a gate to full force their abilities. So what they've done is the Round City Unique Civic was previously 50% production towards constructing buildings and cities with at least 8 urban population. Now they're doing plus 20%. This is a huge nerf, actually, with at least 5 specialists. Yeah. That could be a really, really big one, actually. Building tall in a very different way and losing 30% production. Ooh, rough. All right. Was 15% science in cities with at least urban population. Now it's plus 10% science in cities with at least 5%. Wow. Basically the same thing here. This feels like a really huge nerf for Abbasid. We'll have to see how it plays in the game, but it feels pretty bad. It was previously plus 4 science in towns. Now it's plus 2 and plus 2 happiness. And then you get The +1 gold and science for each resource assigned to the cities with at least 5 specialists. So it literally, it's just moving from urban populations now to 5 specialists, which you could say you could do maybe a little bit easier, but I still think it's going to take a lot more time. And you're getting less from the I mean, this is a huge nerf, actually. They go from being one of the best civs to potentially one of the worst. I don't know. You guys will have to let me know, but these are, the hammer has come down on Abbasid, and their reign is over. Feels like, at least. UI. We've updated the UI for the settlement production. Okay, we talked about this already. Everything that they've added in here, I think, is important. You guys can look through it, but they do a better job, I think, explaining it from the dev article and stuff like that. So give that a look. I think it's going to be really, really helpful for you. The pause menu. We've updated our pause menu design and added new functionality, add-ons, DLC, and mods enabled for your current game are now displayed. Yay, that is actually important, because if you're going back and forth between different saves, you might not know. Added copy to clipboard functionality for the game's map seed. Read-only access to your current game's advanced options setup. Okay, alignment and spacing. The age progress menu will now function properly at all game resolutions. Same thing with the government menu one. The jungle or Jaguar's traps in the Civilopedia. Okay, we don't go through those. That's not that big a deal. Controller specifics. The left trigger and L2 button prompt is missing when switching to the AI leader's diplomacy menu, while the player's leader is shown in the leader portraits. The tooltip of tiles no longer show when opening the religious. Okay, the button prompt is now removed. Controller no longer loses functionality when opening the leader ribbon and pop-up notification at the same time. That's again, how they find out these things is wild. A non-functional choose mementos. Now, sorry, I shouldn't say that just because I don't play with a controller, but it just feels funny that, like, the instance of those two things happening feels like it shouldn't be that often, but I don't know. What do I know? A non-function choose mementos button no longer appears when opening the social menu in a multiplayer lobby. The player is no longer able to switch to an unmet leader's diplomacy menu when they press the RT, R2, or ZR button in the diplomacy menu. So you can't just get an extra look ahead on controller. General, the game will no longer get stuck on the please wait screen while opening up Civilopedia. Diplomacy menu will no longer show an incorrect -1 influence to befriend cost if a player has met independent power but not found their village yet. That is good. I actually remember having that happen once. I was like, how did they dislike me already? Now we know. Addressed a reported issue that caused significant slowdown when opening or switching to the settler and trade lenses in Antiquity Age. Addressed a reported issue causing input delay when selecting an action during an 8-player multiplayer match. All right. Most of these, they're just general bug fixes. Is there anything else in here that I think is super important for us to go through? Improve the Auto Explorer tooltip to be more informative for players. The distant land treasure resource icons will now correctly appear instead of the homeland treasure resource icons in the city detail tooltip with the trade route menu. I think that is actually a nice little change there. Relationship status now properly updates on the tooltip when entering a war against a friendly city-state. And information for specialists and buildings on city tiles will not update correctly. This is super important with all the stuff that they're doing for the on-the-map focuses as well. Some audio changes that you can go through if you would like to, like new music and stuff like that. Age transition impact, game speed, and difficulty are now sticky. The game will remember these settings between create game sessions after starting a game, which is good. They address some issues with Max. For our Switch players, addressed a reported issue where the chat box became inaccessible after rejoining a multiplayer lobby. On Switch 2, improved usability of the scroll bar in the mapping configure control screen when using the Joy-Con mouse controls. And then Steam Deck, the next button is no longer missing when starting in Antiquity. Okay. Whew, I can see the little thing down here at the bottom. We're almost done. Right to Rule collection. So part 2, we get Scylla, Kajar, and Lakshmi Bai. I have gone through each one of these individually. And I guess that will be it. So I've gone through the leader, both civs, what my thoughts are on them. You can fully expect that we will be doing, a Lakshmi Bai best civs here at some point. I don't know exactly when. I've got some wedding stuff coming up this week, so and Connor may be at some of it, so we will have to kind of see when that comes out. But you guys should expect one to come out for us. And maybe we can look a little deeper into Scylla and Qajar if you guys would like. But here's what I'm going to say. This update was much bigger than I thought. I mean, it took me almost an hour, and I skipped a ton of stuff. If you want to give it a read, I think that you should. You can find it over at thecivilization.2k.com and go to game notes. That being said, I think this one is much more significant than any of us are going to give it credit for. This is really and truly just the beginning before they really dive in and change a lot of things, I think, for this game. And just, even just the Napoleon change, right, I think is huge, right? We are seeing that they are willing to make changes to the things that they thought that we were all going to like that maybe we have not. So I want to give them their due. I really thought this was going to be a very small patch initially, but they have dramatically changed the game once again, and I'm very excited to see, kind of what they have next. I'm not going to bring it up every single time. I'm really not, but I fully expect that we will hear more about the future soon, and I'm really hopeful based on the last couple of updates that we have gotten and the kind of little tidbits that they are throwing in there about the future. So let me know what you guys think about this update. I've been talking long enough, so we're going to end this one. So from our house to yours, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys will join us for one more turn.